If your Mediterranean diet is mostly pasta, bread, cheese, and wine, you may be eating the fake version while telling yourself it is heart healthy. The foods with the best branding are not the foods doing most of the work. That mistake can quietly turn a strong pattern into a calorie-heavy weak copy. The real engine is vegetables, fruit, beans, whole grains, nuts, olive oil, and regular fish, with red meat and ultra-processed food pushed back. Olive oil helps, but it cannot rescue a plate with no plants, no beans, and almost no fish. One premium ingredient cannot save a low-quality pattern. Stay here. I will show you exactly where the fake version breaks, what the real version looks like, and how to build meals that actually fit it. The Mediterranean diet is a style of eating based on traditional patterns from countries around the Mediterranean Sea. There is no single exact menu, but the common structure is clear. Meals lean heavily on vegetables, fruit, beans, lentils, whole grains, nuts, seeds, herbs, and olive oil. Fish and seafood show up regularly. Poultry, eggs, and dairy are moderate. Red meat and processed food show up less. The key idea is plant-forward eating. The plate is not built around a giant slab of meat with vegetables trying to survive on the edge. That is one reason the pattern keeps showing up in heart health conversations. It raises whole foods and unsaturated fats while pulling back on saturated fat and highly processed food. If you understand the pattern, many cuisines can fit it. If you only chase recipes labeled Mediterranean, you can still miss the whole point. That flexibility matters. The Mediterranean diet is not one rigid national menu, and it should not be sold that way. Greek, Italian, Spanish, Middle Eastern, and other regional food habits share themes without being identical. The useful lesson is not cultural cosplay. The useful lesson is a repeatable pattern: more plants, more beans, more whole grains, more olive oil instead of butter, more fish, and fewer meals built from processed defaults. That is why people can adapt it without making every dinner a costume. A big part of the Mediterranean pattern is fat quality. Olive oil, nuts, seeds, fish, and other unsaturated fat foods replace some of the butter, processed snacks, and heavy saturated fat defaults common in worse diets. That matters because the benefit is not that olive oil is magical. The benefit is often that olive oil and nuts replace more saturated fat-heavy or ultra-processed options. That does not mean unlimited olive oil is a free pass. It is still energy-dense. The point is better swaps inside a better pattern, not pouring calories with spiritual confidence. Fatty fish like salmon, sardines, mackerel, or herring also fit the pattern well. But you do not need gourmet seafood to qualify. The larger point is regular seafood and fewer processed meat defaults. The useful rule is simple. Use olive oil and other unsaturated fat foods to replace weaker defaults. Do not turn them into a reason to ignore portions or total diet quality. Mediterranean eating is not vegetarian by definition, but it does shift the protein pattern. Beans, lentils, chickpeas, nuts, seeds, fish, and seafood usually show up more often. Poultry, eggs, and dairy can fit in moderate amounts. Red meat and processed meat are usually less frequent, not because meat is evil, but because the overall pattern improves when plant foods and seafood do more of the work. Moderate dairy can fit. Yogurt and cheese show up in many Mediterranean patterns, but the diet is not built on massive dairy intake. The core still stays plant-forward. Beans and lentils are not backup food here. They are central. If your Mediterranean version has olive oil and expensive fish but no legumes, it is missing one of the cheapest wins on the plate. One of the simplest ways to start is to rotate proteins differently. More beans, more fish, more lentils, more nuts, less processed meat, and fewer giant red meat meals. That alone changes a lot. A normal Mediterranean day can start with plain yogurt, fruit, oats, and nuts, or eggs with vegetables and whole grain toast. Nothing here requires a themed cookbook. Lunch can be a bean salad, lentil soup, or whole grain bowl with chopped vegetables, olive oil, herbs, and lemon. That is Mediterranean eating in plain clothes. Dinner can be fish or beans with vegetables and a whole grain. The meal still looks generous because plants take up real space on the plate instead of pretending to be garnish. Fruit works well as dessert, and water is normal. Wine is optional, not required, and if you do not drink, do not start for health branding. If breakfast, lunch, and dinner all repeat the same structure, the diet gets much easier to hold. That is why this pattern works better than people who only copy the aesthetics. Fake Mediterranean versions break in the same places. People keep the pasta, bread, cheese, dessert, and wine, then forget the vegetables, beans, fish, and legumes that were supposed to carry the pattern. Another breakpoint is calling ultra-processed snacks healthy because they use olive oil. A better oil inside a bad food does not turn it into a dietary halo. Bread and pasta can fit, especially when whole grain and paired with vegetables, beans, or fish. But if refined carbs dominate every meal and produce becomes decoration, you are no longer doing the real thing. The fix is simple. Put the plants, legumes, whole grains, and fish back in the center. Let red meat, dessert, and highly processed food move back to the edge where they belong. The useful rule is this. Copy the pattern, not the stereotype. If your version is mostly plants, olive oil, beans, whole grains, and regular fish, you are close. If it is just pasta and wine with better lighting, you are not. Here is the short version. Eat more vegetables, fruit, beans, lentils, whole grains, nuts, seeds, olive oil, and fish. Eat poultry, eggs, and dairy in moderate amounts. Keep red meat, processed meat, sweets, and ultra-processed food less frequent. Then respect your context. If you have kidney disease, a severe digestive condition, or a clinician-directed diet, do not force a generic template. Adjust the pattern to real medical needs. The win is repeatable food quality, not Mediterranean cosplay. If the pattern improves your weekly defaults, it is doing its job. Next, open the full nutrition framework on the channel so the Mediterranean diet fits inside the bigger system of calories, protein, fiber, movement, and long-term adherence. Subscribe and tap the bell so the next breakdown lands on your feed.